Hi everyone, this is Board Games and Bourbon. I'm Glenn Flaherty, and today we're only going to talk about one game, and that's going to be Waggle Dance. This is a dice placement game where you are putting them on various cards, trying to have 5 honey before anyone else. It says it plays 1 to 4 players and takes 45 to 60 minutes, and there has some ups and downs to it and some really wonderful qualities that I want to talk about. But before we get too far, we're going to talk about day drinking again, yay! And we're going to talk about Jack Daniel's Triple Mash, which is actually one of the more interesting bourbons, whiskeys, I should say, that I've had in recent years. Now, I don't normally drink Jack Daniel's because I find it a little bit weaker, and it always reminds me of banana bread when I drink it. But this one here, I wanted to take a chance on it. The price was right. I think it was $30, and boy, am I glad that I did. It has a characteristic about it where you can kind of taste like a spicy rye and some other things going on, but it still has that sweetness from the charcoal filtering to it. This might become my new daily drinker if the price stays where it is, which was $30 a bottle. Normally, I would drink like Bullet or maybe even Old Overhaul or even Evan Williams White. I mean, those are some like really like budget bourbons that have a lot of bang for the buck. But this is awesome. Everyone who's had it has loved it. I've already drank like half the bottle and I've only had it a day. So okay, check that out. I think you'll be really pleased if you do. Jack Daniel's. Now on to the game, Waggle Dance. Well, Waggle Dance has a lot of things going for it that are very interesting, and it even does provide, in a very gentle way, room to be creative in what you're trying to do. And there's a lot of elements to it to discuss, so bear with me as I try to go through everything here. Now, the game itself is a card game, a dice game, a resource game, and what you're trying to do is create 5 honey before anyone else. To do that, what you need to do is take several steps. You need to get chambers, you need to convert them. To convert them, you need resources, X, Y, and Z. But the whole thing is going to start with you getting 6 dice to start the game, and they're actually very fun looking little dice. They're smaller than the typical size, but there's a cute little custom B for the number 1. You're going to roll these die, and then kind of like dice as workers, you're going to place them on these cards. Now, there's an array of cards here that work in 3 different ways. Some of the cards, like this card here, this is a card that gets you a honey chamber. Now, you're going to notice it says 1 through 6 around the sides. Now, what that means is a person can go here if they have one of those numbers. Somebody else wants to go here, or even the same player wants to go here again, they certainly may, but it has to be a number that's not that, right? Only one of every face is allowed on this kind of card. Now, this is a card that gives you a chamber. You need the chamber because eventually you're going to turn it into honey. There's another card here that gets you an egg. The egg sack, again, it's 1 through 6. You need this because this card, once you get it, you can turn it in eventually to get extra dice. You're going to need extra dice because the extra dice are turned in to make your honey, and you turn in extra dice to get future dice so that you can have wider options and more power in the game. There's another card here, 1 through 6, that is kind of like a get out of trouble card. You can go here as many times as you want, and you can trade in some resource you don't want for one that you do, okay, at a little bit of an exchange rate. And lastly, there's another card here that gets you cards that break the game. So normally, in the game, you're going to make your honey by trading in 2 die that are the same value and 4 nectars that are all the same color. But this card, if you had this one, this would let you turn in any color nectar. Or you could trade this in on this other spot and trade it in for a nectar that you did want. Other cards let you take your turns out of order, which can help get you out of jams as well. And there's a bunch of modifications and rule bending cards there. Now, there are also the nectar cards. Now, you need the nectar because you need 4 nectar to turn in to make your honey. Unlike the others, that's 1 per spot. These are majority control. So you have to say to yourself, okay, I'm going to go there if it's just me or if someone else is there, but I really need the color. Do I want to duke it out with them and spend a bunch of my dice there just to get the nectar when I could be doing other things? That's a really nice decision point. And then there's 2 more cards over here. This card here says you turn in 2 die and an egg, and at the end of the round you're going to get 1 more die, more power, more options. And then this other card here which is an interesting graphic design because it's actually missing information that the original version from 8 years had. This is a reprint. This says that you can turn in 2 matching die, 4 pollen, nectar the same, and you can get honey, but it also has a power where if you have 2 chambers with matching die numbers and they have nectar in them, you can swap between them so that you can line it up and get 4 of one kind on a card. But they didn't mention that second half. I don't know why they eliminated it. The older version had it. It also leads to a problem in the rule book with that card because the rule book says you have 2 powers on the card, but the rule book does not say whether it's this and that or this or that. That's a pretty important sticking point. Okay, but how are the decisions in the game? Like I said, there is room to be clever in there, but I wouldn't say there's a lot of depth or paths to getting to your victory point. Now, we could also argue, one of the most fabled games ever, chess, only has one path to victory: capture the king. Well, sorta. Yes, that's the winning condition, but there's an infinite array of possibilities about how to get there. Am I convinced that there's an infinite array of ways to get to having 5 or more honey in this game? I am not. And it's very perfunctory, the choices. It's fun, it's lighthearted, but it is perfunctory. I would not say it's something a grizzled gamer is going to return to over and over and over, but it's a pleasant one to do, perhaps with a family on a Sunday. Now, component-wise, how does it look to you? The card art is fantastic. The nectar in the game, they're all different sizes. They're all different colors. They're nicely made. They feel good in the hand. The dice, vivid again, great. Oddly, the egg sacs are huge in this game, which really surprises me. It surprises me because the actual chambers you get in the game are not much bigger than the eggs. And that was an issue because, like I said, to turn a chamber into honey, you need 4 nectars and 2 die, and that does not fit on here. You have to put it beside the chamber, which putting it beside the chamber makes it a little hard to get that effect of building a honeycomb when you're putting all your chambers next to each other. So I wish those little what are those, hexagons were larger in that regard. Now the game also comes with 2 other things. It has an event deck, and the event deck is curious. So the event deck has events where it'll say 1 die per player has to be put on this card to avoid the problem. So what does that really mean? What that means is this card here says, let's pick one that's pretty easy to read. At nighttime, it's either like you lose a die or you don't get a die, right? Something like that, or you lose a nectar, or you lose a card, or something like that. You lose a chamber, whatever it might be. There's a whole array of specifics. Now, the thing with the event cards are, if it's 1 die per player, what that means is, if it's not going to affect me, I'm not going to contribute at all. But if it affects the other person, they have to play not only 1 die for themselves, but 1 for you to avoid the problem. So that's a double doozy on somebody it's affecting. I haven't played with that too often. I found it made it definitely stressful, but it was another element of the game. Now, it does say it's 1 to 4 players in the game. The game is really a 4-player game. It plays quickly, it plays great at 4, and it speeds up because you get more dice, you're doing more things, and it becomes more interesting as the game goes on. At 3 players, you put out 1 set of blocker dice for the 4th player, and 2 player, you put 2 sets of blockers, and then you have a solo mode. Now, I will give credit, the solo mode has a really ingenious and commendable solo deck that you play, but as nuanced as the solo deck is, and I appreciate that it was made, I actually found that it made the game tedious. Like I said before, the decisions are cute, but they're not hefty, okay? So what does this card do for the other players? Well, 1, when you do the AI, you have to, every round, you have to put out a set of blocker dice. You roll them, and then you put them where you need to go. Okay, then you take your turn. Now this kicks in for the AI. The AI is going to have 1 action or another action, and you see which one you can do. If they do one of those actions, then you have to find out where it's going to go. And if it's not going to be there, then you have to go down this chart to figure out where it's going to be. And if you don't have the number that it's requesting, then you have to go around this chart on the card to figure out which die you want to be. Then, after you do that, then you have to go through the same cycle to put out the last set of blocker die to play as the fourth player. So you end up playing the AI card more than making your own decision in the game. And I wasn't sure, I did not experience the depth of choice to warrant going through all the effort to run the AI. As well as it runs, it's no fault of the deck, but it didn't really sustain it. 4 is the best player here. So what do you walk away with here? Well, one, you walk away with a beautiful game with a rule book with some missing information. Like I said, the rule book didn't tell you this card is this and that or this or that. It also didn't tell you in the rule book how many die that the AI gets. You are to assume that it is the same as if it was a natural player. But things like that are going to be important. I got help from the creators, and that was really helpful. But it's also a budget game. I think it was $30, but I got it for $20 because I got it from someone who had like a 30% discount. So at that, you really can't complain about any game. That's a fantastic price. Way more game that I would expect to get for that point, frankly. So ups and downs. Do I recommend it? I'm glad I played it. But would I recommend it? I don't think you're going to be missing anything if you didn't play it. But if you did play it, you would walk away going, oh, okay, well, that was pleasant. Let's move on. Okay, so that is Waggle Dance, and that is Jack Daniel's Triple Mash. Until next time, friends, be well.